I came into this world 5 minutes before her. They called us miracle twins. 2 lives, 1 breath. But even then, something deep inside me whispered, only one of us was meant to shine. Mother said her smile could soften stone. Mine, she said, was mysterious. But I knew the truth. Even in the warmth of the same home, I was the shadow, and she was the sun. On every birthday, she closed her eyes and made a wish. And I stood beside her, watching, praying her wish wouldn't come true, because I had already lost everything I never got to have. At first it was harmless, a missing toy, a torn dress. She cried to Mama, and I stood behind the curtain silent. I told myself it was just a game, until the game became my world. I could have forgiven her, if it was just about love. But she didn't just take the boy I loved. She took my future, my name, my place in this family. And no one even noticed. At Mama's dying bed, I waited, hoping she'd choose me, but her hand reached for my sister, not me. She gave her the family necklace. That moment, something in me shattered forever. I warned her that night. I whispered through tears, "You don't know what you've done." She smiled, as if my pain was just a joke. And that's when I knew. She had to pay. That house had always felt haunted. But that night, it wasn't ghosts I heard. It was my own rage, whispering from every wall. Do it. Make her see you for once in her life. She turned around slowly, as if she already knew, her smile, soft, pitying, unbothered. I lifted the knife, my hand trembling, but her eyes never left mine. That smile, that cursed smile, was the last thing I saw before the room exploded in screams and my world split in two. They say blood is thicker than water, but what if that blood has turned cold? What if the only thing flowing between us now is betrayal? I remember the first time she lied for me. I thought it meant love, but she only did it to hide her own sins. That was the first trade, her silence for my shame. She knew how to win hearts. She danced like dreams and spoke like honey. I watched the world fall at her feet, while I held the broom behind the curtain. The night she wore my dress without asking, I didn't speak. The day she signed her name under my poem, I stayed silent. But inside, something began to rot. She always laughed the loudest, even at my pain. And when I cried in the dark, she told them I was too emotional. Maybe I was, but emotions can kill. Mama's journal. I wasn't supposed to find it, but I did, and what I read inside changed everything I believed about who we were. Only one will inherit, the stronger one, the true one. Those were Mama's words. I never knew she believed that one of us didn't belong. She wasn't just my sister. She was my curse. And the house we grew up in, it wasn't a home. It was a throne, and only one queen could sit on it. I tried to walk away, I tried to forgive, but that smile, the one she wore when she saw me break, it made forgiveness impossible. So I made a choice, not out of hatred, but out of survival, because if I didn't end this, she would. She had everything, love, attention, the future, but what she didn't know was, I still had one thing left, my silence, and silence, when sharpened, can cut deeper than any blade. I stood behind her, just like I had my whole life, watching, waiting, wanting her to turn around and finally see me, not as a sister, but as a storm. But she didn't flinch. She didn't beg. She looked me dead in the eye and whispered, "Do it," as if she wanted me to become the monster she had always called me. And just for a second, I hesitated. Not because I forgave her, but because, deep down, I still loved her. Despite everything, despite me. But love doesn't erase pain. It buries it. And when the ground shakes, the buried always rises. And just for a second, I hesitated. Not because I forgave her, but because, deep down, I still loved her. Despite everything, despite me. And then, I let go, not of the knife, but of the girl I used to be. Her scream didn't come from fear. It came from recognition. In that moment, she finally saw me, not as her sister, but as her reckoning. That room, once filled with light, now held nothing but shadows, our family's truth exposed in a single breath, and no one could unsee it. Even now, I wonder, did I do it? Or did she make me become it? Maybe we were never two halves. Maybe we were always one broken whole. They tried to stop me. Screams, gasps, hands pulling me back. But no one had stopped her when she stole my life with a smile. But love doesn't erase pain. It buries it. And when the ground shakes, the buried always rises. Her scream didn't come from fear. It came from recognition. In that moment, she finally saw me, not as her sister, but as her reckoning. That room, once filled with light, now held nothing but shadows. Our family's truth, exposed in a single breath, and no one could unsee it. Even now, I wonder, did I do it? Or did she make me become it? Maybe we were never two halves. Maybe we were always one broken whole. They tried to stop me, screams, gasps, hands pulling me back, but no one had stopped her when she stole my life with a smile. In every corner of that room lived a lie, a birthday lie, a wedding lie, a lie sewn into every compliment they ever gave her, and every silence they offered me. I didn't kill her that night, not with a blade. I killed the version of her they all worshipped. I dragged their illusion to the floor and showed them who she really was. She cried, not for pain but for pride. She saw the crown slip off her head. And I didn't smile. I didn't win. I just finally breathed. They called the police. Of course they did. But when they arrived, no one could say who was right or who was dangerous. They called the police. Of course they did. But when they arrived, no one could say who was right or who was dangerous. They gave her a hospital bed and me a cell. She got therapy. I got silence. And yet, somehow, I finally felt seen. She sent letters, said she forgave me, but forgiveness, that's just another crown. And I don't wear her jewels anymore. I still hear her voice sometimes, in dreams, in storms, in the crackle of broken glass. You may think I'm the villain. That's fine. But tell me, if someone wore your face, stole your story, and smiled while doing it, what would you have done? They buried the story, covered it in hospital reports, court documents, whispered judgments. But stories don't die. They wait, and they remember. They moved on. New holidays, new photos. Her seat at the table stayed empty, but her shadow never left. I left that house. The walls whispered her name. The mirrors only showed her face. I needed silence again, but this time, the kind I chose. I changed my name, not because I was hiding, but because I was finally ready to write a new one. Some nights I still dream of her, but not the way she was. In my dreams, we are young again, before the lies, before the poison, just two girls chasing fireflies. In those dreams, she turns to me and says, "It didn't have to be like this." And I answer, "But you made it so." I don't hate her anymore. I don't need to, because the wound she left became the map I used to find myself. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else. It's a door you walk through, alone. And I finally walked through mine. I used to wear pain like perfume, let it speak before I did. But now, I wear silence, and it sings louder than any scream. If you're watching this, you probably expected a confession, but I have none, only a story. And stories don't beg for mercy, they demand to be heard. The world will twist your truth, wear your scars like accessories, and call it justice. But I learned, the only truth that matters is the one you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. She used to call me too much, too loud, too jealous, too angry. But what if I was never too much, just never small enough to be ignored? People always ask why I didn't just walk away. But they never understand. The cage wasn't made of walls. It was made of memories. Sometimes I wonder, if we had never been born twins, would I still hate her? Or would we have been friends in a world that didn't compare us? They buried her story next to mine, but she lives in the air between my words, not as a ghost, but as a warning. They say grief is love with nowhere to go, but I found a place for it, inside me, not to poison, but to protect. I don't tell this story to be pitied. I tell it so that someone, somewhere, will recognize their own silence and break it. Because truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the softest voice in the room, the one that's been quiet too long. If I could go back, I wouldn't stop what happened. I'd only hold her hand tighter that one night, before everything turned to knives. And maybe that's all we are in the end, a collection of moments, some warm, some bleeding, but all ours. They thought this story ended the night the screams echoed through that house. But endings aren't so loud. They come slowly, in whispers, in reflections. People ask if I regret it. The truth? I regret everything, and nothing. Because regret is a wound that reminds you survived. I didn't tell this story to relive it. I told it so it wouldn't bury me alive, so I could finally stand on its grave and walk forward. They say twins are one soul split in two, but maybe some souls were never meant to be shared. She haunts me, not like a ghost, but like an echo, a sound you can't stop hearing even when the room is empty. If I could speak to her one last time, I wouldn't ask why. I would simply say, I see you now, and that's enough. We were sisters, we were strangers. We were stories stitched into each other's skin, and now I let go of the needle. The final cut wasn't hers, it was mine, cutting the cord between who I was and who I choose to be. I carry her in my silence, in the way I breathe before I speak, in the space I leave between words.